Is a recession and downgrade of South Africa's credit rating to junk status avoidable? What triggered the dramatic weakening of the rand? How much does the current state of the economy and drought affect the poor and the unemployed? Why did the ANC make the economy a key area of focus at its recent three-day Lekgotla? What time is it? It is question time. Welcome to Question Time. My name is Mpho, Tsedu. The IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, has recently cut its forecast for South Africa's GDP growth for 2016 from 1.3% to 0.7% and from 2.1% to 1.8% for 2017. This state of affairs is blamed on the inflation outlook that has deteriorated since the last monetary policy meeting in November. The intensification of the drought and the sharp depreciation of the rand have aggravated the situation. At its recent Lekgotla, the ANC put special emphasis on the economy, saving of jobs and restoration of the fiscal sustainability and credibility. Meanwhile, during today's Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the Reserve Bank announced the increase of the interest rate by 50 basis points in a bid to put inflation under control. A reminder that we are live. Therefore, you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial 089-110-4210. Our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. And you can also Skype. Just send us your username via Twitter and we'll be able to link up with you. My guest today, Israel Mkhize, who is a political economist, and from our Pretoria studios, Professor Tsedu, who is a political analyst and is also based at the University of South Africa, UNISA. Before we continue, let's have a look at the repo rate announcement made by the Reserve Bank Governor, Lekgotla.
Decided to increase the repurchase rate by 50 basis points to 6.75% per annum, effective from the 29th of January 2016.
Okay, that's gentlemen, let me welcome you. Prof, welcome to Question Time. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Now, thank you very much.
Mvelas, let's firstly look at what does this announcement mean to the ordinary person. You know, I bet you there's lots of us who don't know what this 50 basis points means.
Right, right. Thank you for having me. Well, it directly means how much your bread, your milk, your cigarette, your petrol maybe, it's going to cost you from now on. And how is it going to cost you, for instance, to borrow money from the bank or registered financial institutions, and how much interest are they going to add on that? Given that the repo rate, which is in simple terms, how the percentage that the Reserve Bank charges or marks up for lending money to commercial banks, who in turn will use the prime lending rate to give monies to the people who are borrowing. Say you're buying a car or you're buying a house or whatever. Well, the repo rate was put at 6.75%, and then the prime lending rate was 10.2.5%. Well, in an economy like ours, where obviously, like any economy, we obviously depend on consumables, retail and so on, we've had two factors that have been a very, very time bomb, which, as we have seen, have triggered the volatility of the rand. Number one, you've got the natural question, which has been the drought. Now, how does the drought affect this whole question? One, you have that the people who are in the farming industry who produce consumables for the household, that they've had to use extra reserves to produce food, like to complement the lack of rain. Now, what that has costed them was that most of them had to go for financial guarantees, and they've entered into a bit of debt to subsidize that. And obviously the government has assisted. Now, on the other hand, we have numbers which are reflecting that consumer spending has been very high retail profits and margins have increased. But when you look at where the consumer has gotten that money to spend, you realize that it's just been borrowed. So you find that in a very revenue-trapped agricultural industry, where the farmers are also have been plunged into to the lack of rain, you find that their buyers or the buyers of their final product have bought those goods with borrowed money. So that at some point will lead the rand to succumb in terms of its financial balance and in terms of inflation. Hence, you find that the food prices, because of these two factors, have been going up. Even though on retail, there's been a reflection that there's been huge profit margins. So for people, this means that more spending, paying more. Although, on the other hand, it may be an advantage for people, a very few, who have saved or who have had something to save, because that means that on their savings, there is going to be a much higher margin in terms of returns.
Just quickly touch on the rand, where it is at and, that volatility.
Well, the rand has taken a bit of a nosedive. In the past 2 months, it fell by 15%, as we saw. Obviously, it talks to the question of either the currency markets, the borrowing power, and its purchasing power of goods, as it were. Now, that obviously talks to our sovereign economy, and also we are an open economy. It also talks to the open economy. For instance, some decisions which are made from outside, like your Fed Reserve decisions, but mainly the problem has been on the fall of the commodity prices. Where you find that the issues in China, their stock market, the fall in terms of commodity, obviously, there's been a debate what made the commodity prices to fall. Is it because of oversupply, which drives minimal demand? So all of that makes, obviously, some other technical internal decisions perhaps could have also precipitated the fall of the rand.
Prof, I'm happy today I'm talking science, whether it be political or economic. But in your case, has the government, and particularly the African National Congress, how would you say they have emerged out of this rand crisis? Prof, if you can hear me? Yes.
Yes, I think I miss you, but I think the thrust of the question is, how did the ruling party emerge out of this crisis?
Yes.
Look, it is not about the ruling party. I mean, there is a global economic meltdown, and the health of the rand is being impacted upon by external and internal factors. And on that basis, therefore, one may be sympathetic to the view that says it's not precisely because either the leadership or some people in the corporate world are not doing what they should be doing. I think we are part of the global world, and whatever happens to the major economies of the world necessarily would impact on us. And it is the small man, the wretched of the earth, who is going to bear the major brunt of this economic meltdown, especially the poor health of the rand.
But now, Prof, does it therefore mean that this has got nothing to do with David van Rooyen?
No. I'm far from it. Far from it. Certainly, DES contributed in a major way, in a sizable way, to the poor health of the rand. Remember, his appointment precipitated, right?
Yes.
The downward spiral of the rand. And those who had intended to travel to the West, they can tell you how much they suffered on the basis of that appointment. But again, those who indeed had opportunities to come to South Africa or perhaps even to invest, they had a failed day. There were losers and there were winners. But suddenly, Des is no small man, because through the appointment of Des, I think within a few days, the country managed to lose over 200 billion rands. So history will certainly not forget him.
Okay. Now, Israel, my colleague, Francis Hurd, who was covering Davos, came back and she was complaining that she bought a cup of cappuccino for almost 300 rands, an ordinary pizza almost 800 rands. Are we going to feel it to that effect, or is it only those who are traveling abroad who are going to feel that the rand has really taken a knock?
Well, it depends, Mpho, how the cycles of economic volatility, sometimes they can last between 3 to 7 years. Sometimes they can last between 15 to 30 years. It depends on the intervention strategies that are used, that are put in place. Like, for instance, when you look at all the BRICS-aligned economies, leave the politics of it, but take the economy of it. You look at Brazil, you look at their growth in the recent past. It hasn't been looking good. On Friday, which is tomorrow, I think, Japan is going to have a policy pronouncement because they're also affected, their economy. Okay. You go to Europe, currently you find that most of the countries are feeling the pinch because of the refugee question. So there are many factors that would go into this. However, I don't see us going, for instance, the Zimbabwe route, which happened in 1999 to 2000, where bread ended up shooting up to 2,000 years. Okay. So it's very small micro issues, and also macro on how we manage those, which determines how bad the inflation can go.
We'll talk about that Zimbabwe issue a bit later. For now, I want us to take a quick break. When we return, we'll be taking your calls, 089-110-4210. What do you make of today's announcement? How are you affected by the fall of the rand, or perhaps are you banking in dollars? This is Question Time.
Milk stout chocolate infused. Savor the moment. The crafted chocolate stout made to be savored responsibly by people over the age of 18.
We know you're out there, silently waiting for your spot in the limelight. Step up, people of the party. We need your energy, your greatness. Just because you don't do it for money doesn't make you an amateur. Yes, we salute you, party comrade, with a bottle of Johnny Walker Red Label for just $169.99 from Tops at Spa.
Mancosa, Southern Africa's leading distance learning institution. Accredited, affordable, and accessible management education programs. Higher certificates, diplomas, undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. Register at Mancosa and be part of Southern Africa's leading private business school. Visit our website, mancosa.co.za. Mancosa, management education reimagined.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe had something to say about the economy as well, just emerging out of the 3-day Lekgotla of the African National Congress. Let's take a look.
While accepting the challenging emanating from the depressed global economic climate, the pressure on emerging markets, and sluggish economic growth, bold actions are expected from the government to grow the economy inclusively, avert the possibility of a credit rating downgrade, because if we get that downgrade, we are just a notch above what is known as the junk status, and create an enabling environment for more jobs, decent work, sustainable livelihood. To this end, we must, one, engender consensus between all key stakeholders to help stabilize the economy, save jobs, restore fiscal sustainability and credibility.
That's the Secretary General of the ANC. My guest today, Israel Mkhize, who's a political economist, and from our Pretoria studios, Professor Lisiba Tefo, a political analyst and an academic at the University of South Africa. I remind you that you can call us. The numbers to dial 089-1104-210, which is what Fanny in Polokwane has just done. Welcome.
Hi, Mpho.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call, Fanny.
Yes, Mpho. The problem with South African government is that, if you remember, as Africans, we've always been relying on minerals to grow our GDP. That's the only problem. And the ANC has been warned years ago that we need to we need to diversify our economy. You see?
Yes.
All those years they've been talking about what they are going to do, but at the end of the day, they don't implement that. We don't benchmark against, like for instance, China. China has been doing all the years. And then as South Africans, our economy is not growing, and then we don't set targets, and then people are saying that we are not an investor-friendly country. You see? And then, remember, like years ago, we were referred to as the biggest economy on the African continent.
Yes.
Right now, Nigeria has taken us on as the biggest economy on the African continent, and the ANC is just. They're just sitting there, they're not doing anything. That's the problem we are having with our government. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Fanny. Prof, let me quickly just come to you there. Realizing that Fanny has now brought in the China question. Is China a liability for the ANC and South African government?
Certainly not. Certainly not. If it is, who is not? Look, at the end of the day, as Mwalimu Julius Nyerere once said, people don't eat slogan.
Yes.
People eat food. Whoever can come and help me maintain myself with respect and dignity, I certainly would work with him. What I hear people say is that the East or China shouldn't be given the opportunity to at least to trade with us. But who's saying that and why? And why was that not the case yesteryear, that it is only happening now? I mean, look at China's challenges notwithstanding, but wherever they've gone on the African continent, they have made a material difference. We may have ideological difference with them, and I'm not sure even if there are still countries that are driven by ideology rather than the self-interest or the economic or the market forces. So I would say China is certainly not a liability, and I can see the contribution it's making, especially in relatively poor countries, in terms of improving the infrastructure. Incidentally, even some countries in the West do go to China for financial assistance, for redemption when their economies are in trouble.
Not doing well. Okay. Dougie, you are in the Val. Welcome.
Hi, how's it?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Yes.
I don't want to ask anybody a question.
Make a comment.
I just want to make a comment or two.
All right.
When Thabo Mbeki was president, our country was doing pretty well. As soon as Jacob Zuma took over, if you look at the 8 years that he's been in office, he hasn't done nothing for the country, even though he claims that he has. Even if you look that they go into China or they go into wherever, if you look at the value of the Chinese currency compared to the value of the American currency, I mean, it tells you in no uncertain term that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
The other thing that I want to say is that if you listen to, what's that guy, that secretary of the ANC yesterday's speech?
Okay, Gwede Mantashe.
Yeah. If you listen to his speech, he turned around and he said, no, we don't want capital. We want to negotiate all new. We don't want commerce, trade of commerce. We don't want capital. So what is he saying? What's he doing to us?
Okay, Dougie, thank you very much. Is right?
Well, he's raising very interesting points, but I don't think all of them are accurate, particularly if you're going to consider the periphery correlations of global economies,
Yes.
where you find that the core countries, like your developed economies, they have a particular macroeconomic agenda of sustaining a particular stand in world economy. But then you'd find a country like China, you'd find a country like Russia, you'd find a country like Nigeria, who would be very bold and say, we want to go out and no longer play the soft macroeconomic agenda. For instance, there's one book which is very important, written by a Nobel Peace Award recipient of economics and politics. They look at how China leaped out of certain particular ideologies which were drawing it back, which is what I think the countries that have transited from being semi-periphery economies to near core. Like you look at how China has now played their political economy game, the currency game. They understand that when you talk of global markets, it's a currency war. It's no anyone will put anything on your table. You have to play the currency wars, know how to project, know how to do scenario planning around the issues of currency. You saw how they devalued their currency, say, the third quarter of the year, but towards the end of the year, they were rated as one of the measuring currencies. So it's certain, as I was saying, like for instance, you take the Egypt economy, let me make this last point. You take the Egypt economy, they've just come out of a civil unrest, the toppling of a head of state. But they looked and said, we may not have the macro structure to boost up the economy. Then they developed micro, small enterprises, which is vis-a-vis with our current situation in South Africa, which is where we may be slacking, that there is the presence of big and mid-sized business, but we need to create those small enterprises so that we get into the currency competition.
Itumeleng, you're in Pretoria, quickly.
Mpho, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thanks for the call.
Yes. I'm not the professor, but I would like to differ with the professor.
Okay,
he said ahead. South Africa, it is going through what it's going through because of we are connected to the globe, globally.
Yes.
But let's look at Ethiopia. Many people are not looking at Ethiopia. Ethiopia, from where it is to where it is right now, it has improved. Mm-hmm. Ethiopian airline is the only airline in Africa that is making profit.
Correct.
They're improving infrastructure. Then we come to the issue of China. You don't go to China and find a South African city. You don't go to China and find South African town. But you have China cities in each and every town in South Africa. We've got Chinatown in each and every town in South Africa. Yes. I want to say to the professor, there's a difference between what he gave an analogy of a previous politician. There's a difference between someone helping you, and there's a difference between you depending on the help. We must be like Ethiopia. Those people have good governance. We don't have good governance. Standard and Poor's, they are downgrading South African way of running the economy, South African government of running the economy. Right. So I know I'm not the professor. I know the professor read a lot of books, but I think he's wrong. Thank you very much.
Okay, Prof, a different opinion there. Please respond.
I think I'm pretty familiar with Ethiopia. At least twice or thrice a year, I visit that part of the world. They are doing reasonably well. But I'm sure more Ethiopians would be keen to come and reside in this country, given the infrastructure and the performance of the economy. Indeed, even the SAA. That's one. Two, he speaks about China. But he must ask himself the question, why are the majority of government or states are willing to welcome China when it comes on board? Maybe the fault is not with the stars. The fault is with the African leadership. So he must extend this question and ask the question why. But in the meantime, people don't eat slogans like he seemed to purport. People eat food. They want material changes so that at least their lives can be better. Okay. I concede China may not be the best under the sun, but certainly the West, especially its counterpart, is equally not the best.
No, I need to close. Okay. But you had made a very interesting point about Zimbabwe earlier.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to say we must stop looking at the Far East for the models. First, we looked at the Far East, looked for development states. Then we ended up singling out China and ignored the other developmental states, wherein they had certain characteristics which are common to our economy. Okay. But we are ignoring Mauritius, which is just right here, next to us, which has the best models in terms of similarities and strategic ways out of the slum in which most of our African countries are finding ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that matter off air.
Okay.
All right. But that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. Thank you to Professor Sibatefo as well from our Pretoria studios. From me and the crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.